Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'd like to continue our series on armed teachers. Today I'd like to talk about cartridge selection and also ammunition selection a little bit. When you're trying to choose what cartridge that you might use as an armed teacher, of course you have a huge variety of possibilities. For those of you who are new to the series, haven't seen the earlier videos, I'm trying to give some advice to teachers or other maybe school employees who might be armed on a school campus. It may shock some of you to learn that in the U.S., there are some states that authorize teachers and other school personnel to carry firearms for the defense of students on campus. And I'm sure that shocks some people even in the U.S., but in some states, that's becoming more normal. And the laws vary from one state to another, one district to another. It's a controversial idea, and I'm not endorsing any particular course of action. I'm not endorsing any political, any policy. But if you live in one of those states, or if you work in one of those districts or one of those schools that authorizes armed teachers, well, I'd like to give some advice to the people who might be making those decisions about how to arm teachers most effectively. Now, Uncle Paul would often say, hey, I'm not trying to give you advice, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Well, I'm certainly not trying to tell you what to do. I am giving you advice, though, in that I'm advising you of what I think maybe are some of the issues you should consider, and trying to give you some information so you can make a better decision. Now, I'm not trying to encourage you to make one decision or another, but just giving you some information of things that maybe that I think you should consider, that you should think about in making your decision. We've talked previously about long guns. We've talked previously about rifles. I'm assuming, though, that the primary arms that teachers would carry or other school personnel would carry for defense of their students would be pistols of some kind, handguns of some kind. And there's a huge variety of different firearm types. There's a huge variety of different types of handguns, revolvers, derringers, semi-auto pistols. I'm assuming that most would go with semi-auto pistols, but there are lots of other options as well. And then we have like a full-size, service-size sort of pistol. We have some very compact or micro-compact pistols. We have some in between, like a Glock 19, which has traditionally been called compact, but really is more of a mid-size. These days, we don't think of it as being terribly compact. Back 60 years ago, a Model 39 Smith & Wesson would have been considered a full-size, service-size pistol, or even in the 90s, something like a 5906. Well, it only has a 4-inch barrel. The Model 39 was really pretty compact for a service pistol, and the Model 59 was the same in a 5906 or something in that series. Those are really reasonably compact pistols, and with an aluminum frame, they're kind of on the small side, sort of like a Glock 19. More of a mid-size pistol than a traditional full-size or service-size pistol, and yet they were considered service-size, or full-size. The lines get blurred a little bit between what is a full-size or a mid-size or compact, micro-compact, subcompact. The Model 26 and similar Glocks, the baby Glocks, when they came out in the late 90s, I recall, were quite shocking for being so very small, and now they're a little bit on the large side for a lot of concealed carry pistols. Something like a Model 43 Glock is really quite a bit smaller. Still chambered in 9mm Luger, though, in the full power cartridge. So there's a huge variety of different types and sizes of pistol. Even if you go into semi-auto, some are blowback operated, some are hammer fired, striker fired, some are recoil operated. Some have a delayed blowback, like a gas delayed piston arrangement. Bunch of different action types, and each has its benefits and its weaknesses. Some are like the Beretta 92, which has a locking block that engages on the left and right side of the slide. Some have a Browning tilt barrel. Most do. Most have a Browning style tilt barrel. The Glocks and the SIGs and the Rugers, almost all of those are Browning tilt barrel. And some have a rotating barrel for lockup, like a PX4 Storm from Beretta. So a bunch of different action types. I probably won't talk much about the difference between hammer fired, striker fired, etc., and recoil versus blowback operated. I don't know that it matters that much, but when it comes to chambering, that is a big deal, because that's a very personal choice, and some people have really strong opinions about what is the proper chambering for a firearm. So I want to talk about that today. In a full-size or service-size pistol, traditionally we sort of have these options. We get cartridges like 45 Auto, 9mm Luger, 40 Smith & Wesson, 10mm Auto, 38 Special, 357 Mag, etc. And those are sort of full power pistol cartridges for service-size pistols. Nowadays, you can get very compact pistols in those chamberings. You can get a very compact 45 Auto or 9mm Luger. You can get a J-frame 357 Magnum that holds 5 rounds, and it can be very light, like with a scandium frame. And if you want to shoot that with full power ammo, you're going to do it without me, because I'm not participating. That sounds painful. But some people like that. They want that power. They want the lightweight. They don't mind the recoil. Okay, more power to you. But all those cartridges are viable choices. And the answer that I'm going to give you regarding which one of these you might choose might seem kind of boring. It's just pick one. They all essentially do the same thing in the same way. They're all about equally effective. Some, yes, do have advantages over others, but for the most part, there's not a huge difference. And most of you will just settle on 9mm Luger. And that's fine. That's great. It's a great choice. It has, it's a cartridge with basically no weaknesses. It does everything reasonably well. It doesn't do any of those things like super well, but it's fine. It's inexpensive, low recoiling. It just works. It's just fine. But if you tell me, boy, I really like 45 auto, okay, go 45 auto. It's fine. That works too. If you like 40 Smith & Wesson 10mm auto, they work. They're fine. They're great. It's not a problem. Any of those on that list are about equally good for our purposes. If you ask me, hey, if you had to get shot, which one would you want to get shot with? Well, not that I want to get shot with any of them, but there are some that are a little more survivable or a little less unpleasant than others. But ultimately, they're all pretty similar in performance. So pick one of those. Just go ahead and pick one of those. In many cases, you won't have an option. Your district or your school or whatever will tell you what you have to carry. But if you have a choice, or if you have input on that choice, again, any of those are fine. They're fine. Some of you may be interested in carrying a very small pistol, a very compact pistol. Well, there are some very compact ones in 45 Auto, 9 Luger, 38 Special. There are Derringers out there, but that may not be what you want. Some of those are unpleasant to shoot. Some of them don't have as much capacity as you want. A lot of you will come to the conclusion that you might want a little pocket pistol and a pocket pistol chambering. Something like 380 Auto, 32 Auto, 25 Auto, 22 long rifle. Even one of those North American Arms mini revolvers, and something like 22 long rifle or 22 Magnum. Again, those can be fine. Some of these can be really low recoiling. If that's what you want, say a revolver in 22 mag, you have quite a bit of potency there, but very little recoil. However, I am going to say, and I've said this before, there's a difference between the full power pistol cartridge and your pocket pistol cartridge. And either one can be effective, but the full power pistol cartridge tends to be much more so. So unless you really need either the light recoil or you need a very, very compact pistol because you just can't conceal or you can't carry something bigger, I would stay away from those pocket pistol chamberings. Those pocket pistol chamberings, in terms of terminal effect, terminal ballistics, are not quite as good. And you're going to stack the odds a little more in your favor in a gunfight if you have a full power pistol cartridge. If all you can carry is 380 or 22 long rifle or whatever, it can work, it can be effective. And I'm not telling you should despair, but just understand you're stacking the deck just slightly more in your favor by going with a full power pistol cartridge. Okay, what about really, really powerful pistol cartridges? What about something like 44 Magnum, 50 Action Express, 41 Mag, 454 Casull, 500 Smith & Wesson? Those have lots of power. And when you have lots more ballistic power, terminal ballistics, that really improves your chances of winning a gunfight, right? So you should probably pick one of those. No, don't. Those really potent cartridges that are much more potent than traditional sort of full power or service cartridges are probably not a good choice. They're expensive to shoot. They have lots of recoil. They might overpenetrate. They're suboptimal for a bunch of reasons. However, I will not say that you absolutely should not consider one of those. I really don't think that most people should, but I can think of a couple of instances in which they might be rational choices. One would be if you already own, say, a revolver in 44 mag and you use it to hunt or whatever, you shot it quite a bit and you shoot it really well and you don't shoot any other firearm well. Okay, if you've got a Model 29 or a Super Blackhawk or whatever, it's in 44 mag, and you shoot it super well and you don't shoot anything else well, okay, that's a pretty good choice. Like, the gun that you shoot really well is a good choice. I would prefer that you go get something else and learn to shoot it equally well. But if you, for whatever reason, can't do that, a 44 mag or 500 Smith & Wesson is the gun you shoot well, okay. If you shoot it really well, on demand, you can put those bullets wherever they need to go, okay. That's your choice. That's a good choice for you. But for 99% of us, that's not going to be a good choice. That's going to be pretty silly. The only other instance in which I can think that would be a good call would be if you teach or work in a very rural place, and there's a possibility, some kind of decent, realistic chance that when the kids are on the playground or something like that, a bear is going to come out of the woods, or a wild pig, or a mountain lion, and attack one of the kids, and you'll need to defend him with this very potent revolver or other pistol. Again, that doesn't sound likely at all. For 99% of us, that's never ever going to come up. And even for the other 1%, it's probably hardly ever going to come up. But if that is a legitimate concern at your school, okay, well, you would know it. And okay, maybe that is a rational choice for you. For most of us, that is not going to happen. So I don't know that it's worth considering that much. I would not, for the most part, consider those really big, potent revolver cartridges or 50 Action Express or something like that. Those, to my mind, are not a good choice. The last category of cartridge I'm going to talk about is a small, high-velocity bullet. Some cartridge that fires a really small, really high-velocity bullet, like especially typified by 5.7 by 28 millimeter, but also 22 TCM, 22 Magnum, or 7.62 by 25 millimeter. 22 Magnum can fit into that sort of pocket gun category because you can get a really little Derringer or a really little mini revolver in 22 mag. And so you can have this very small but still reasonably potent firearm. But 22 mag out of a larger pistol, something like a Kel-Tec PMR 30, can give you a great deal of velocity with a small, relatively small and light bullet. Okay, so why did I lump all these together? All of these are cartridges that are known to defeat soft body armor. 22 mag will do it pretty reliably. 5.7 by 28 will do it very reliably. 7.62 by 25 will tend to do it very reliably. Supposedly 22 TCM will also do it. I don't know that I've seen any tests of that. I can't remember seeing it. But the point is that, or even something like 7.5 Bernot. I hadn't thought about that. That one should go on the list as well. There are some of these cartridges that fire relatively small, relatively light bullets at very high velocities, and they can defeat soft body armor. Well, I've seen reports of people who go to a school to commit murder and they wear body armor, and we've seen other mass murderers wear body armor too, not necessarily at schools. I see conflicting reports though. I've seen reports that some of these people have worn body armor and other people say, well, no, that person was wearing a plate carrier, but with no plates. You know, some people report body armor, some people say no. So has it ever happened that someone has gone to commit murder at a school while wearing body armor? I don't know. I can't find substantiated reports of that. However, it's reasonable to think that that will happen eventually. At some point, somebody is going to try to go to a school and commit murder while wearing soft body armor. So you might think one of those pistol cartridges that defeat soft body armor would be a great choice. Bear in mind, though, that probably sooner or later somebody's going to go to a school and try to commit murder wearing hard plates, and most of those cartridges do not defeat hard plates very well. So one of those cartridges could give you an advantage against your potential mass murderer, your would-be mass murderer at a school. I don't know that it's worth choosing one of those cartridges on that basis. I would not choose that on that basis because I don't think it's that likely. And if somebody's wearing body armor, you can shoot around it. You don't have to shoot through the body armor, you can shoot other parts of the body. But if you think that's something that's likely to happen and you want to prepare for that, I don't think it's the craziest thing or the dumbest thing in the world. Carrying a pistol in 5.7 by 28 millimeter, that can still be reasonably effective, even if you're not shooting through body armor. A lot of people say it has a lot of the same wounding potential as 9mm Luger. I really don't think so based on gel tests and things I've seen, but it's fine. It really is okay. Maybe it will take longer to incapacitate someone when he's been wounded with that cartridge, but he's still going to be incapacitated. It would be terrible to shoot someone with that cartridge and realize later, oh, he probably would have collapsed 60 seconds earlier if I'd hit him with 9 Luger, and maybe he murdered some more people in that time. That would be awful. But that cartridge will give him a wound, can give him a wound that will stop him. So he's not going to be able to continue his rampage indefinitely. Again, I leave it up to you. Those are not cartridges I would choose, but it's not the craziest idea in the world either if you think you might be encountering soft body armor to choose one of those. Some of these, especially 5.7 by 28, also have the advantage that they give very soft recoil, although they can be quite loud. If you're very recoil sensitive, and again, you don't shoot even a full-size 9mm pistol well, but you do shoot 5.7 by 28 well, okay, well, then just shoot 5.7 by 28. If you shoot it really well, you'll probably be fine. You'll be okay. Probably the biggest downside to these really high velocity cartridges is that they require quite a bit of barrel length to achieve their potential and defeat body armor, if that's why you're carrying one and want to carry one. Well, if you have a 9 Luger pistol, you can have like a 3 or a 3.5 inch barrel. You can have a very short barrel and still maintain enough velocity that that cartridge is ballistically effective. But with 5.7 by 28 or something like that, if you want to get enough velocity to defeat body armor, I don't know what is the minimum barrel length you'd want, but look at the pistols on the market. Most of those have relatively long barrels. So that means while you do have good velocity and good hit probability with a long sight radius, et cetera, you have a very shootable pistol. You have a pistol that's harder to hide, it's harder to conceal. And a big part of what you're doing is going to be concealment. You're going to be concealing it a lot more often than you're going to be shooting it. You're probably never going to shoot it, but you'll have to keep it concealed all the time. You'll have to keep it concealed every day. So it seems to me that something like 5.7 by 28 is probably not a good choice, in part because you have to carry a relatively big gun to make that work. So it's not one that I think I would choose. But again, if you really think you need to defeat soft body armor, okay, those are possibilities. The last consideration I'd like to talk about is what type of ammo to choose. Once you've chosen your cartridge, should you shoot full metal jacket? Should you shoot lead round nose, wad cutters? Should you shoot hollow point? What should you shoot? For almost every pistol cartridge, your best choice is going to be jacketed hollow point, or maybe for some revolver cartridges, something like semi-jacketed hollow point, something that expands reasonably well. Expanding bullets limit over-penetration. They limit the possibility of unintended injuries, shooting through one person, hitting another. They also just they make a bigger wound channel. They do more damage to the human body and thus give you more chance to end the fight quickly in your favor, to stop that threat before it becomes a bigger threat or before it causes more harm to people or more injury. And so that's extremely important. There's a reason that police departments in the US overwhelmingly choose hollow points. They don't all, but just about all of them. There are things like Glazer safety slugs, these fragmenting bullets, mag-safe ammo. I haven't seen that in a while, but it used to be a thing on the market. There's a bunch of fragmenting ammo, the RIP, the radically invasive projectile that fragments. Those usually do not perform well. They often create a really spectacular, gory, terrible wound that's not very deep, that might not reach to a vital organ. And sometimes they will break up and fragment inside the gun before they're fired, and they cause malfunctions. For the most part, fragmenting ammo like that is probably not a good choice. There's some people who really swear by wad cutters or semi-wad cutters, or fill in the blank. There's somebody who'll swear by almost anything. But really the choice is jacketed hollow point. There is an old lead hollow point load for 38 Special, and you can still get it. And some people think that's a good one. I'm kind of lukewarm on it. It's not the worst choice. It's not terrible, but it's still a hollow point. It will still expand, or at least it's intended to expand, whether or not it actually does. Some hollow points are intended to expand, and sometimes they don't, and that's just how it is. For the most part, you should be choosing a hollow point that has a good track record of giving expansion, that has shown that it expands well. And you can look at gel tests online and that sort of thing and see which ones are likely to expand and which ones are not. You can get a very good idea by looking at online videos and reviews, that sort of thing. There are the old NiClad hollow points. I think those are from Federal, and I think they're still on the market. They're not jacketed, they're coated in plastic. Again, that functions basically like a jacketed hollow point. I'm not that fond of NiClads, but again, if that's what you got, it can probably work. It can be fine. But in general, we're talking about jacketed hollow points. We also see some bullets that have some kind of plastic insert. They're essentially a hollow point with some piece of plastic in it, like Powerball or Hornady Critical Defense or Critical Duty ammo. And they have sort of a ballistic tip kind of thing. They have a hollow point that's got a piece of plastic stuck in it, either to help initiate expansion or to prevent hollow point clogging. And those are fine. They function very much like jacketed hollow points. I, for the most part, put them in the same category as jacketed hollow points. There's Federal Guard Dog ammunition, which is an expanding full metal jacket. It's basically a copper cup. It's got a lead core, but in between it's got a squishy piece of rubber, basically like polymer. So when it hits something solid, the nose will flatten out, that rubber will squish, the jacket will deform, and you'll get expansion and you'll get a wider wound channel, just like you do with a hollow point. And that stuff seems to expand really reliably. Unfortunately, it doesn't perform all that well in gelatin. Like, I remember when that stuff came out, I thought, well, that's the wave of the future. That's going to be the ammo. That's going to be great because it doesn't clog up and it always expands. Its terminal performance, sadly, has not really been that good. It's not terrible. It's not bad, but you're probably better off just with a jacketed hollow point. A few years ago, we started to see a lot of, was it Lehigh Defense? There was Fort Scott, I think, was one of them. Underwood created a bunch of them. There are these bullets that have a weird spiral look to them, or they look like a cut-off Phillips head screwdriver, something like that. And they were all bullets that weren't intended to expand, but they created like these weird hydrostatic shock waves that would create a big wound channel. They were essentially intended to give you a lot of the performance of a jacketed hollow point, but without a hollow point. So if the bullet doesn't expand, because sometimes hollow points don't expand, if it doesn't expand, no problem. It wasn't intended to expand. It does its damage without expanding. And if you live in a place where hollow points are prohibited, no problem. It's not a hollow point. It doesn't expand. So there were a bunch of reasons why that ammo looked really promising. But what we've actually seen is that, yes, it does work better than Full Metal Jacket and some other kinds of ammo, but really it doesn't work as well as jacketed hollow point. The wounds it creates are not as good. It sometimes penetrates more than jacketed hollow point. It creates a smaller wound channel. It really just isn't as good. If it's all you've got, again, it will work. It's pretty good, but it's not as good as jacketed hollow point. The more I look at all these different kinds of ammo that are intended to do impressive things in terms of terminal ballistics, the more I keep coming back to jacketed hollow point. That's the stuff that works. So when you decide the cartridge you want, probably what you want is jacketed hollow point. If you've got one of those tiny little pocket pistols because that's all you can conceal, well, a lot of the 25 auto and 32 auto ammo out there that's hollow point doesn't expand. I would just go with Full Metal Jacket. That stuff will tend to reach a vital organ reliably because it's Full Metal Jacket. And even if you get the stuff that's meant to expand, it usually doesn't expand. That's also true with 380 auto. Most of the 380 auto hollow points out there don't give reliable expansion, at least not in a pocket pistol. Maybe in a bigger pistol with a longer barrel, but there are very few of them that will give expansion in a pocket pistol. And when they do, they sometimes don't penetrate to a vital organ because they don't really have a lot of energy to work with. And you're robbing them of a lot of it when you get expansion. I'm not saying you absolutely shouldn't. The Hornady Critical Defense seems to expand pretty well, even through a very short barrel, but it doesn't give a whole lot of penetration. So you have to balance what you think is important in terms of penetration versus expansion. And I feel like I could go either way. If somebody told me that's the load I had to carry, critical defense in a pocket 380, I'd be okay with it. I just remember that, hey, this stuff does not penetrate very deeply. So I got to wait for that straight on shot to the chest. I can't shoot somebody through the arm and penetrate down to the heart or whatever. That's not going to work. Or I might have to aim for a different part of the target. It's just how it is. I would tend, though, in those pocket pistols just to avoid expanding ammo and just go for something that I know is going to penetrate. In 22 long rifle, that's controversial as well because there are a bunch of loads out there that even in little pocket pistols do offer pretty good expansion and offer, usually it's with a light bullet at a very high velocity, and they give a lot of energy, at least for 22 long rifle, out of a tiny pistol. Something like Remington Yellow Jacket, those apparently will expand out of even a very, very short barrel. But I do worry that they may not give enough penetration. And I think, just to keep it simple, if I were forced to defend myself or someone else with 22 long rifle, I'd probably just go with solid nose ammo. I wouldn't worry about expansion. But that's just me. Your mileage may vary. I'm not going to tell you what should be important to you or what you should do. And most of those little pocket guns penetrate so little that over penetration is probably not a big concern. But you know, if you're really and if you're ever going to be concerned about over penetration, it would be in a school. So maybe if you're stuck with a 380 pocket pistol, that Hornady Critical Defense is absolutely perfect because over penetration is really, really not a problem. That might be a very wise choice. Once again, not going to tell you what to choose, but in almost any gun, unless it's one of those little pocket guns, I would be going with jacketed hollow point. And one of those little pocket guns, I might go with something solid nose that I think will be more likely to penetrate down to a vital organ. If I'm trying to punch through body armor with really fast, lightweight bullet, I guess look at some reviews. I don't remember which ones are more likely to penetrate and which ones aren't, but you look at some reviews of people shooting body armor on the web. Even the ones that are hollow point or that have a ballistic tip or whatever will usually penetrate a vest, soft body armor vest. Although they don't all do the same amount of damage once they're on the other side of the vest, or since if you ever have to use this firearm, it probably won't be shooting through a vest. Most of the time we don't see these mass murderers wearing vests. In that case, you might want to pick something that gives good terminal ballistics in the absence of a vest. And again, would that be a hollow point or a ballistic tip? I don't know which ones perform better. I've seen some gel tests and I can't right off the top of my head remember how they all went. But most of you will probably shoot 9 Luger. Most of you will probably shoot jacketed hollow point. And for most of you, that'll work really well. That'll be good. And there are so many good jacketed hollow points on the market. I invite you to go look at gel tests and pick one. There are certainly some that don't work well. That's true. Most of them work quite well, and you don't even have to spend a lot of money. A lot of the fairly cheap ones work really well. Uncle Paul almost always liked the Remington green and white box 115 grain jacketed hollow point for 9 Luger. It's some of the least expensive hollow point on the market, and he found it gave some of the best performance. It will work about as well as any of the hyper ammo, any of the really expensive stuff. Golden Saber or Ranger SXT or Hornady Critical Defense or Buscadero Taikondas, any of them. Some of those hyper ammos, types of hyper ammo did give maybe slightly better weight retention or slightly better penetration, just slightly better in some way, but not enough better probably to make any great difference. And he could afford to shoot lots of the green and white box stuff because it was very available, it was relatively inexpensive. To him, it just struck a really excellent balance, and I would tend to agree. That stuff or Winchester white box, they make a jacketed hollow point load in 9 Luger that works well. There are a bunch of them that work well. The 9 BP load from Federal, it's just their regular Federal. It's not their hyper ammo. It's not Hydroshock or HTP or whatever. It's just their regular hollow point. And yeah, it works well. It's been around for a long time and it works well. It's not a super duper ammo. It just works well. So I'm not going to tell you which one of those to pick. If you want to go buy hyper ammo, buy the really expensive stuff, that works. Yeah, go for it. If you want to buy the cheap stuff, a lot of that works really well too. So you just pick one, whichever you like. Most of you will go 9 Luger, most of you go jacketed hollow point, most of you go semi-auto, and that's okay. Some of you might go 9mm Luger and a revolver, and that's okay too. Those work really well. And you can reload them quickly with moon clips. And if you like the simplicity of a revolver, well, 9mm Luger ammo is available and it's inexpensive and it works well. That's a pretty good combination. I'm not going to tell you that's a bad call. That's probably a very good call for many of you. Some of you are going to go 45 auto and that works, and 10mm auto works, and all of those cartridges work. You pick one, you pick some good ammo, look out there on the web, look at some gel tests, and just pick one. And the big thing you need to do after that is, if you don't have those skills and those competencies, get to the range, learn to operate that firearm safely and effectively, and especially learn marksmanship, because if you're ever called on to need that firearm at your school, that'll be the most important shooting you ever did in your life. Even if you have those skills, get to the range occasionally and keep them fresh, because those skills deteriorate rapidly when you don't use them. If it's been a year since you've been to the range, you need to go back. You need to go back quickly. There you go. That's the advice I have for you. In picking a cartridge and picking ammo, that's it. Keep your powder dry.